Hi.
Hi, make yourself at home, okay? I'm almost ready. 1 minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
I forgot all about the weed. Oh my god, I feel like you're
Harry, are you in there?
Be right out!
I hope you're not using the toilet. It's broken.
Huh?
Flush.
I was just shaving.
Oh,
Oh my god.
Shaving.
Monday hot dog, Tuesday taco, Wednesday hamburgers and chocolate milk, Thursday sloppy joes and burritos in a bag. Friday was pizza day, the best day of the week. It always came with salad and a side of cold cream. Hooray for pizza day, hooray for pizza day. I miss pizza day, the best day of the week.
So I hope everybody out there is all warmed up and you have tears screaming out of your eyes as I do. We've all seen or heard of Monty Python, Airplane, Twins, American Pie, and get ready to relive some great comedy moments and some great comedy movies, as this is Sean's Old School Movie Podcast, episode 6. And I'm Sean Whiteman, and
I'm Mike Stopford.
And this is Comedy Films.
So, I mean, first thing, how you been?
I can't lie, man. I'm
A
still hurting after that intro.
For anyone who doesn't know, that was
Dumb and Dumber.
it was a classic scene from a classic movie known as Dumb and Dumber, which I think we'll get into a little bit more.
What I can't believe is just, and it's said in other reviews too, that just the most effective toilet humor ever used in a film. I mean, when I go back and I listen to that, I mean, in high def, I mean, just, it's disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting, and I still have tears screaming out of my eyes from laughing so hard. My stomach, I haven't laughed like that in a long time.
That was
Jesus Christ.
It's the
Fuck.
it's the we. That's the part that gets me every time.
Unbelievable.
They've used toilet humor like that in a lot of movies, but when you go back and you look at look back at one from, say, the 70s, that was a movie that was kind of like, I don't want to go back into Charlie Chaplin and all that kind of stuff, like really old stuff that no one's really ever seen.
But if you want to talk about
but
changing the revolution of comedy films in just a completely vast different way,
I'm going to say Airplane.
Monty Python.
Monty Python, Airplane.
Both movies delivered a concept of humor that just, I'm really sorry for saying this, but I have to say this. It is the perfect kind of thing for anybody with like ADD or attention deficit disorder. You know what? It is stuff that just goes absolutely nowhere, but it is absolutely hilarious. Nothing in it makes any sense whatsoever, but it's absolutely humorous, and they are classic films.
And you know what? With a film like Airplane, it's the little, tiny, subtle things that they do. Everything
is a joke.
Everything.
It's the guy has a drinking problem, and he
Yeah.
splashes the drink in his face
In his
every time
face,
he
because
tries
he
to have
hasn't
it,
drank
'cause
for
that's
so
his
freaking
drinking
long.
problem.
That's his drinking
Just
problem.
and simple little things, right down to the like, Shirley, you can help her. Well, yes, I can, and don't call me Shirley.
Don't call me Shirley.
Like everything.
You can
was
watch
a joke.
these. You can watch these movies 100 times over, and you will pick up a different joke every single freaking time because there is so. It's just one gag after the next, right after the freaking next.
That's all it was.
That's
And you know
that
what?
is
You know
all
what
it is.
I liken it to, like something kind of modern day that has the same sort of vibe to it. Not a movie or anything, but like Family Guy. Family Guy does where they have
Same
the
kind of
cutscenes,
thing.
and it's just basically it's gag after gag after gag after gag, and then the
Straight
show's
up.
over. And it's the same sort of thing with Airplane. Like from start to finish, it is funny.
Yeah,
There's no build up to it. There's every part of that movie is a joke.
Things too that I have to say with these kind of people, and whether you think the film is stupid or hilarious, I mean, we have to give credibility to the writers to come up with very clever things like that, like just pieces of humor, slapstick humor, one after the next. And probably one of my favorite things, most innovative things from the two that we're talking about right now, are Monty Python. And go back to the Holy Grail. I mean, I thought just the concept of using, there's no horses. We have coconuts in our hands and we clop them together, and that's, I'm riding a horse. I thought that was freaking hilarious. And not to mention the fact of the fight with the Black Knight.
I was going to say that's probably my favorite.
That's absolute classic Monty Python.
And those,
all the way.
and I mean, and those were classic movies, and they gave way to other movies like when you're getting a little bit farther along, say in the 80s.
Are we sticking slapstick or are we?
Yeah, for a slapstick style.
Leslie Nielsen.
Again, Leslie Nielsen.
He'd be the first to come in.
Like when you look at.
Well, shit, he was in Airplane.
Well, exactly.
He had his own starring role with Naked Gun.
I was going to say Naked Gun.
Naked
Just blanked
Gun.
on it for a second, but yeah, Naked Gun. And again, it was a little different, but basically slapstick. And I think that was Leslie Nielsen's. That was his forte as a comedic actor.
Right.
Was the slapstick.
He had good, impeccable timing with slapstick. His character in Airplane as the Doctor was absolutely classic in every way, shape, or form. This is going to sound really stupid coming from me, but I'm totally drawing a blank now. Where did Hot Shots fall in? Because that was next concept up for slapstick. Late 80s,
I
or are we
want to say
talking
late
very early
80s.
90s? For the first one, at least, anyway.
I think it's late 80s.
Late 80s? I'd say late 80s. But Hot Shots,
I'm gonna look it up. Just 'cause
Again.
I want to know.
these are films that, what makes them slapstick is they took ideas of other films, like original films. So take Airplane, for example. They're all parodies, and
Hot Shots was 84. Nope. Hold on.
yeah, I was going to say, I remember seeing that in the theater.
91.
91. Okay, so early 90s. But these are
There's like 19 movies called Hot Shots. Most of it about soccer players. Anyway.
No, I didn't know that, but I will have to maybe check out soccer shit at some due point in time.
No, you won't.
These are films though that are, as I was saying, like parodied concepts from other films. So if we take Airplane, it's all just one giant slapstick parody of 70s airplane disaster movies. Same if you get into like Austin Powers. They're parodies of James Bond movies in the most slapstick of asinine way. They poke fun at absolutely everything. Absolutely everything.
Well, and if you want to stick to the concept of kind of slapsticky style, but parodying. So not only did you get, like Austin Powers was slapstick in its gags.
And it's gags.
And
most
it was a
definitely.
spoof of James Bond. But look what the Wayans brothers did with Scary Movie. Scary Movie 2. Like they were just a spoof of horror movies.
Right. And of course, now when we get into the Wayans brothers, now the 90s I look at it as like, the 90s had many different concepts. The Wayans brothers got into, at least with their first one, Don't Be a Menace
to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood.
Whereas that delivered a parody to black films that were coming into the time, such as Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, creating controversy, maybe to some people, depending on how you look at films like Boys in the Hood or Menace to Society. But in a way, I'm sorry, I have to overpass that. I mean, it was funny. It was funny,
hilarious.
and it was absolutely friggin' hilarious.
And it was the same thing when they got into the Scary Movie. Like, Scary Movie 2, I don't know, I think there's like 6 or 7 of them now. But the first bunch were a spoof on horror movies. And then they did the one, they had Charlie Sheen in it. It was a spoof on basically all the M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movies or whatever they are.
Movies, right.
And those were good. Like, the movies that were done as parodies, those kind of slapstick ones, they were good because you didn't really draw comparisons to the originals.
Right. Absolutely.
Because they weren't.
And
it wasn't like a comedy remake. It was,
to me,
it was exactly what you want in a spoof film.
In a spoof film. What I like the most is again, the intelligence, like the smartness of like how do you take something like an extremely scary, frightening movie and take certain things from it and make that funny? Technically, when I watch the original film, I'm scared shitless.
Well, see,
how do I make that funny?
And that's exactly the beauty.
How can I take this horrible scene and make it freaking hilarious?
And that's exactly what the beauty in it is because it's such a stupid movie, but it's so intelligent in how they took that concept and made it funny.
Absolutely.
Like, I know a lot of people who don't like Airplane because they say it's stupid.
It's stupid.
Because it is. It's stupid comedy. Joke after joke after joke of stupid comedy. But it takes an incredible talent to be able to write that.
To be able to do that. Right. So.
And the great thing about all the films we're going to talk about today in the comedy genre is it just feels good to laugh.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
they
it's
say
rare,
laughter is the cure is the best medicine.
And it's rare, but it happens, where I'll be watching a movie alone at home and I will actually laugh out loud at something.
Shit, man, dude, funny. I'll follow my floor.
Like
I'll follow my floor if I do just kill myself laughing. I totally don't give a shit.
So,
but like when you take a comedy movie, like say any comedy movie, you can't just pick anybody. You can't just pick anybody and say, yeah, you know what, this is only a comedy film, so you know what, you'll work out. How funny is this person? Can you deliver the lines at the right time? Can you deliver the right actions at the right time? And that makes this funny. What is funny?
And that is a big thing about comedy, is it's not just about what you're saying, it's how you're saying it.
How you're saying it, the delivery of it. Like, and you know, there's a big question. What is funny? So when you're making a comedy film that, say, like in the 80s, in the 70s, what was funny then?
Well, see, and that's the thing too. I think that what's funny is probably one of the biggest things that can differ from person to person. Like, generally, everybody who watches a horror movie will find it scary. Everybody who watches a sad movie will find it sad. But,
dude,
people's opinion of what they think is funny is...
Dude, I'm not
different from...
I'm not going to lie to you, man.
Like, from person to person.
Now, that's an interesting point, because we are all different in our own ways. So, when you say... watching a horror movie, whatever, you know what, shit, man, there are some horror movies that I watch that, like, let's say, for example, the killings in them are so friggin' brutal, I laugh at it. I find that funny. I'm sorry, but, okay, to explain that...
Which also means if you appear on the news someday, we shouldn't be surprised.
Probably not. But, I'm sorry, I'll explain that concept. I only find it funny... In real life, I mean, I wouldn't find it funny. Please don't get me wrong on that state. I only find it funny because I know, in my mind, it's movie violence. I know it's not real, and I know whatever's happening is not really happening to these people or anything like that. But, I mean, there are some things beyond a point that it's just like, this is so unfreaking believable. It's hilarious. This is just utterly ridiculous. It's hilarious.
And I mean, those are movies that aren't even supposed to be funny.
No, exactly.
But you look at what's funny, like, it differs so much from person to person. Like, there are things that I find hilarious that I'm sure you don't. There's things that you find hilarious that I don't. And then there's things like Harry Dunn on the Crapper in Dumb and Dumber
in Dumb and
that
Dumber
we both find
that we
hilarious.
both find hilarious.
That I challenge anybody to not find hilarious. But
Yeah.
I found out recently that my mom listens to our podcast. I don't know if my mom will find our intro today funny.
Your mom needs to get out more. I'm sorry, Val. Love you. Knowing you forever.
Yeah. But
I wouldn't listen to our podcast.
But get a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? Shout out to my mom because my dad's gone away for the weekend and she decided to single-handedly take on my son for the evening so that I could be free to do the podcast.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you
So,
again, Val. I love you.
Hopefully he is behaving.
I love you.
But,
my mom would not listen to our podcast, probably. My mom would probably yell at me for listening to our podcast.
But your mom has a great sense of humor.
My mom's a prude. My mom has a horrible sense of humor.
Your mom has a great sense of humor. Every time when we were kids, every time I would come to pick you up, I'd be like, "Hey, I'm here to get Sean," and she'd just be, "Oh, are you gonna bring him home?" Yeah. Oh. Or I'm here to take Sean away forever. No, just for a couple hours. Oh.
I'm not gonna lie. I was a well-raised, possibly well-raised child.
His parents loved him.
I-
So you get Airplane, you get Monty Python and the Holy Grail in the 70s. Then we move into the 80s and you get
Okay,
You
can
get
I
things like that, yeah.
stop you right there because I
Yeah.
thought about this while we were talking about this earlier. Where would you consider Back to the Future? Because I find those quite humorous for the kinds of things that happen in them. They are sci-fi at the same time.
they're also
Time travel
They're also
sci-fi.
kind of like action adventure sort of things too. Like, see, that's the thing. Comedy can cross into a lot of things because there's a lot of funny stuff. But I wouldn't consider Back to the Future a comedy with action in it. I would consider it like an action movie with some comedy.
Comedy.
And it's the same thing. We touch on a few later. There'll be ones that I don't think are horror movies that have comedy in them. They're comedy movies that have some aspects of a horror film.
Horror film,
But,
like horror comedy horror.
But like Back to the Future's a good one. Like it had its comedy moments, but I mean, so did Indiana Jones.
Right.
Like, I mean,
Yeah. Blending action and comedy. Probably my favorite aspect of blending action and comedy was Bad Boys.
yeah.
Bad Boys 2 much better. To blend action and comedy is a little bit difficult because what are you trying to make more? Comedy film or action film, or can you just blend the two of them together nicely? Die Hard, a prime example. Great comedic cat and mouse chase game between Hans and John McClane. But at the same time, Die Hard delivers way more action than it does comedy. So we're not looking at a comedy film; we're looking at an action film.
Mhm. An action film with some comedy. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, you can get some drama films that have some comedy, but movies that I would consider comedy films that have some drama would be a whole other set of movies that came about in the 80s, and that would be your John Hughes.
John Hughes, because there was
some,
always that.
some were more comedic and some were more drama. Like
Right.
16 Candles was a pretty dramatic kind of film, but,
But
it was
it had-
funny. Breakfast Club was funny, but it had a lot of drama in it too. But you look at Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like those were
Those were just
those were
straight up
comedy
all
movies.
out.
They were a snapshot of life as a teenager in the 80s and what
Which-
was funny about it.
Which is really cool that you say that because, like, we as teenagers, we had all our great friggin' times, but we had our dramatic times as well with our friends, as well, and that's
Now,
what we see depicted.
Would you call
through-
those dramatic times, or would you call them
No, man, we had some,
dramatic times that we thought at the time were dramatic?
no, man, they were pretty fucking dramatic. Shit, man, there were some pretty good disaster and fuck ups
That is true.
in times, but I mean, there weren't anything like really bad. Like when you take a look back at say the Breakfast Club, I mean, there are moments where we see that they've all friended, but have they fully friended yet? Because we still see things where someone still offends somebody else, and it's like why would you say that? I thought like we were friends. Kinds of things like that. I mean, sure, it all pieces together at the end, but again, as individuals, we all are who we are. And I mean, we can't help what we do. And you know, that's the real test too that we see in these comedy films when these dramatic parts come up. They're basically moments of levity, almost to say to kind of give your stomach a little bit of a chill time and maybe kind of get in touch with your emotions and stuff like that. John Hughes films were great for that because we've lived through those times. We remember those. Shit, man, I remember all those kinds of things like that. I remember high school like that with my friends, but there were shitty times. There were...
Yeah, but you went to high school in the 80s.
90s.
Oh.
Thank you very much. Shit, how old do you think I am?
Older than me, that's all I know.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, I mean, the John Hughes movies were probably, like, I would say that those were your comedies of the 80s. Like, especially, because that's the thing, is it needs to be relevant for teenagers, I think. Because I think that's your market with these comedy movies, for the most part.
Absolutely.
Are young teenagers, young adults.
Okay, so if we're on the concept of John Hughes movies, let's jump ahead to American Pie. Because without John Hughes, there'd be no American Pie.
And see, this is why, and I can honestly say that the original American Pie probably
Best.
ranks in the top 2 or 3 comedy films for me. And
Absolutely.
that's because whereas John Hughes movies were a snapshot of being a teenager in the 80s, when American Pie came out, like I was
say more at us.
I was 16 years old. Like that was, like, I was 15, 16. I think you were like 18, 19. Like, it was our life.
It was our life.
Like, that was our group of friends. We were all Jim, and we were all trying to get our chance with Nadia, and then we all did something stupid to blow it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
we all knew that Stifler. Like, that Stifler guy.
Every
you know, like,
you know what? Everybody in that time had a Stifler friend, had a friend named Kevin, you know, the Kevin kind of guy that was like, look, no, we got to make this happen. We got to make this party happen. Like, we're gonna do this. This is gonna be our fucking time.
How many nights did we go out saying, like, we're gonna go to this party and we're gonna have some drinks and we're gonna have some fun and we're all gonna get laid, and then we would go to a party and then we'd realize that there were like 3 girls there and 30 guys, and we'd have a couple drinks and then we'd all leave. Like, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, parties at Pat's were great.
Yes.
But there were some nights where
it was
all of a sudden you were like, okay, there's a lot of dudes here, and then we would have to start like actively going out to try to find women to come to the party.
Right.
And I mean, out of the 100 parties we had, how many times did we get laid? Once, twice, like
maybe,
if that. You know, like it was. But that's what it was. But when it boiled down to it, it didn't matter because we all had fun.
Right.
And that was.
But what else? But what else it showed
that was
too
the whole
is
point of it. It was a fun time.
The big change that I like though too, like when we skip ahead, say to now our time, like with American Pie and stuff, the dramatic moments were more that we could relate to. Say like where we realized
that we were.
I do love this girl.
Yeah, all of a sudden you realize you're in love with the band geek.
Yeah, like this girl is awesome to hang out with, and it taught us more to.
Though in my world, I still somehow fucked it
to
up.
grow up. It didn't deviate too much from the aspect of comedy like John Hughes did. It was still funny. It was like what, 2 minutes of a serious scene, and then we were right back to the comedy. We didn't deviate too much from we're trying to make a comedy friggin' film here. You know,
and American Pie 2 was a continuation essentially of American Pie 1. You do your first year of college, you're a little bit older, you come back, and now, you know, you're the college kid at the high school party. Now you're the cool guy.
No,
but not
I'm
really.
at a high school party.
You're still below chance number 2 with Nadia, and everything like that. But see, now let's jump even farther, and this is why I loved American Reunion, because American Reunion came out and it was the same characters, but now they're adults. They have jobs. Some of them are married. Some of them have kids, and it's about. They're still trying to be cool, yet realizing that they're not, but also realizing that they don't need to be because they have what they need in life. And I mean, like I was married. I'm not now, but I have a kid that I'm raising. It changed my life
absolutely
significantly.
We both do.
Exactly.
I've never been married, but
lucky. But like it changes. It changes your life completely when you have kids. And like, I mean, I still want to be cool. But I also realize that at this point, I'm probably never going to be. But it doesn't matter because, and this is where it's gonna start to sound sappy. But like we've been friends for a very long time,
Absolutely.
and you know,
Holy shit.
and
Yeah.
you think I'm cool. You know what I mean? And that's what
I do.
matters. My kid thinks I'm cool, and I can still hang out with you, and we can still
We sit in
we
that
can still
stage
have a
that,
good
we can talk to each
conversation
other about
and-
anything.
exactly,
anything.
exactly. And like, I don't need, you know, the teenagers that I work with to think I'm a cool person anymore.
No.
I don't need that. I you know, and I think that was a cool thing about American Reunion was it was them kind of coming to terms with the fact that this is what life is now, and I'm okay with that. It's good.
That was their extent, and I kind of gotta go back, and I gotta disagree with you a little bit there. Like when you said, like, you know, I have a kid, and you know, I've been married, and you know, I know I'm not cool anymore and stuff like that. You know what? Having a kid doesn't have to let you change. To be honest with you, like, I looked at when I had my son, I was allowed to stay being a kid. Because I'll never grow up, man. I don't have to, man. You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna say this right. I watch Bugs Bunny. I love Bugs Bunny. I watch cartoons. I love cartoons, and it allows me to stay being the kind of person that I am because my kid loves who I am. My kid's got a great sense of
But I
humor.
mean, I meant it more in the responsibilities
Oh,
are different. But like, it's the whole like
I'm responsible,
we don't
by the way.
go out and party and drink on Friday nights anymore.
we don't have that.
and that kind of thing, and that's okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like your how do I put it? Your idea of fun changes as you get older.
I'll go out for a socialized drink with you.
Exactly.
I'll go out for a drink or two.
Yeah,
Have a smoke.
but we're not
shoot the
we're
shit.
not going to go out and get as hammered as we possibly can at somebody's house party.
Right.
So I think that with American Reunion, it was more them like coming to terms with life is different now, and that's good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I wrote a song a year ago, kind of about that, where I was. The basic premise of the song, and if anyone wants to look it up, it's called "Good Old Days" by Center of Attention. It's on
Good song.
my Facebook page, which you could probably get it linked to from some.
Wow.
I
Way to
don't
sell
know.
yourself.
Anyway, so but the whole premise of the song was feeling nostalgic for the good old days, but then realizing that the good old days are now. You know what I
Right.
mean? They're still happening. These are the good old days,
Dude, let's
even
be
though
honest.
they're
We
different.
have fucking nothing to go back and fucking prove. We don't have to prove fuck all to anybody. Okay? Do you want to know something? Okay, I'll tell you something right now. And I don't know if you were there for this. Maybe you were, maybe you were. But last week when I was at work, hi Slade, hi Maddie, if you choose to listen to this because I worked with you like last week and stuff. But we were talking about things that we used to do when we were all kind of a lot younger and stuff. And we actually got like the greatest compliment. Like Slade looked at me and said, like, I totally wish I grew up with you guys in your time. You guys did so much cooler friggin' things.
But that's because we didn't have. We had
We
so
didn't
much
have
time.
cell phones.
Oh,
We
well,
didn't have.
that's the thing, right? Do you know how much less time I have now that I have to take a photo of every meal I'm going to eat and post on the internet so that strangers can validate my dinner choices?
Right, man. I mean, the social aspect is all gone.
We used to actually go out and meet up with each other and hang out because
Dude,
we didn't have phones to text each
probably
other back and forth.
my favorite things that I still remember that we used to do was get a group of us and go sit out on the patio at the Bruce at the long table, and there'd be
Yeah.
like, what, 10 or 11 of us, and we'd all just get eats. There'd be beer all around the friggin' table. And it was like a hearty feast. It was like nobody else on that patio mattered except for us. And I loved that.
And we,
Everybody could just talk to everybody about whatever the fuck we wanted to talk about. And I miss that.
We'd follow it up by going down to the beach and playing some volleyball, jumping off the pier,
Sure.
having a fire. Those were fun times.
That was about it.
That's
That was about all we
it was.
did.
That was basically like an entire summer. But
Now,
it was awesome.
totally awesome. I wouldn't change it for anything. Now, getting back to, since we're touching up on John Hughes and we're touching about nostalgic moments, other great things that he came out with, National Lampoon's Vacation. Who hasn't been on a family vacation like going to Wally World, like going to Europe, a Christmas vacation?
You know what?
Like-
Fast forward into the 90s, the Vegas Vacation.
Vegas Vacation. I mean, these were these were all vacation things that were destined for disaster, and we have all been on those things. And John Hughes captured them perfectly. It was just a disaster spiral for the Griswold family on every single vacation they took. You want that perfect vacation? You've planned it out to a T, which is probably your first problem because you put too much thought into it. But
I used to go on vacations with a person who did that. Put way too much thought and planning into everything we did.
hi, Andy.
And then we'd get to where we were going 3 hours early, and we'd have to sit in a McDonald's for 3 hours and kill time because we had nowhere else to go.
But
Plans like, oh, we got 6 hours to get to Toronto for your grandma's funeral. It only takes 3 hours to get there.
dude, it takes 4
Well-
by bus. You guys totally friggin' overkilled it. But you know what? Again, where we take a look at these things like American Pie, or we take a look at like National Lampoon's Vacation as like, say, like disastery kinds of things for the kind of people we were, the vacation that we took. You know what? You're not going to forget that.
Well,
You're
you
not
know,
gonna
and you
forget
know what
that.
the best part about all of those movies are? Like the National Lampoon Vacation ones?
Vacation stuff.
In the end, the family bonded together.
They bonded.
You know what I
together
mean?
through this
And, like, what was
hell
it?
and
Was
high
it the end
water-
of? Was it the end of Vacation where they got into the fight with that family at Wally World?
No, that might have been European Vacation.
Oh no! You know what? I'm confusing it. That was the remake. Not the remake, but that was the
right.
supposed to be
The-
Rusty taking
Rusty
his
taking
kid.
his
Anyway,
family. But Wally World was they held John Candy hostage
that's right.
because the park was closed. The moose out front should have told you guys.
Now I wanna jump a little something because you brought that up. So Chevy Chase, big comedy actor in the
Comedy
80s,
actor in the 80s.
but another huge comedy actor in the late 80s, early 90s, John Candy.
John Candy, big one. God rest his soul.
And it was another one, and there's another guy I want to talk about too in a few minutes that I think had a lot of good, funny movies left in the tank when he passed. But with John Candy, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles,
Absolutely
Great
hilarious.
Uncle Buck,
Uncle Buck,
great
another
movie.
great one.
Another one that
Home
lot of
Alone, he
people-
had a small good part.
a lot of people haven't heard of it, but then a surprising amount of people have. Like it's a weird one. The Great Outdoors
Love
with
Great
John
Outdoors.
Candy and
Friggin'
Dan Aykroyd.
Dan Aykroyd. Now these are guys. Saturday Night Live brought about all these comedy actors of the 80s.
And you know what? And that's another thing we're going to have to touch on as we go too when we get into the 90s more, because SNL
They're big for
a
lot of boosting a
lot
lot of
of
careers.
the huge comedy
comedy
actors.
careers.
And not only the actors, but the movies themselves came out of Saturday Night Live.
Right. Unless you were somebody big like a Will Smith who had like his own television sitcom or something like that was
Yeah.
able to take off with his own brand of humor.
John Candy, John Candy wasn't SNL. John Candy was SCTV,
SCTV.
which was like the Canadian version of SNL in a way.
Right.
Um,
I love SCTV.
but John Candy did so many good movies. Canadian Bacon
Right.
was another
Another-
big one, and then he did Wagons East, and I think he passed while finishing up Wagons East.
Yeah.
But-
Just great things. Great things like that. Like a lot of other good actors like Bill Murray,
But see,
and as you said, Dan Aykroyd.
Bill Murray, like Groundhog Day. What about Bob? Like
yeah.
Bill Murray is another one. Like most of those guys came from Saturday Night Live, but basically all of them came from some sort of sketch comedy.
Right.
And
Got to start out somewhere.
and the thing is, and those movies to me are like they're quintessential late 80s, early 90s comedy because they're hilarious. They're not crude.
no.
Like
They-
they're not crude at all. They're not rude. There's not really. It's not toilet humor, I guess, for lack
Okay,
of a
but
better term.
you have to understand like
They
back
didn't
in
push
the-
any envelopes. They were just like they were movies that my dad found funny, and I could also watch with him as a child.
right,
because
and find them
It was funny
humorous.
to me as well, and there wasn't anything R-rated about them.
So again, like a lot of other movies that we talk about through other podcasts that we do, comedy movies are also products of their time. So when you say in the 80s, like they weren't crude or anything like that, because in the 80s, I mean, a lot of things were still being fought on the FCC regulation list, which Howard Stern was doing at the time while he was just trying to make a name for himself as NBC, and the FCC was all over him. And sooner or later, it was like, if we give in to this guy, we have to give in to absolutely everybody else. And they couldn't help it. Had to give in to this guy. This
Yeah.
guy was pulling in the numbers. And these guys were pulling into the numbers. So now let's move into the 90s. What did the 90s bring about? Attitude. More
It did.
attitude.
And the envelope started to get pushed a little
The
bit
envelope
farther.
started to get pushed. Comedy was being able to be
And-
pushed
and I
in all
think you
sorts
saw-
of sense.
You saw the Dan Aykroyds, Chevy Chases, John Candys. Those guys started to wind down a bit.
Right.
And then you had. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Apology, people. I've got to go back to your statement of comedy in the 80s not being so crude and what have you. Let's go back to movies like Porky's.
Okay,
Let's go back to movies like
But-
Revenge of the Nerds. Comedy movies did have their aspects of you got to have your sets of tits in there every once or twice.
oh, absolutely. But like Porky's is an oddball in that one because Porky's was an R-rated comedy movie. Like,
Okay, but
Porky's-
Revenge of the Nerds certainly
okay,
wasn't.
but Porky's was not for kids. Revenge of the Nerds was not for kids.
Kids.
I just mean in the 80s, a lot of those movies were movies that kids could watch, but the adults would still find fun.
The adults would
And
still
that's
find
things
fun.
like, and Disney's done a good job of that over the years with their movie, Disney and even Pixar now. Like, there's jokes in there that are aimed at the adults, that
Right.
go right over the kids' heads, that the adults get. But there was definitely movies, and I mean, look at some of the movies, I don't know if you consider it comedy or not, but look at, I think it was from the 70s when John Waters did Pink Flamingos.
That might even be 90s. That was way
Oh, no,
out
no.
there.
90s.
90s at least.
No, man, it was way back.
You sure about that?
Pink Flamingos? Look it up.
Keep talking.
That's why we have cell phones. But like Pink Flamingos was basically an R-rated movie as well. Like there was always those.
That was way
There
out
was always those ones, but I just mean the majority of those movies were very wholesome. When you move into the '90s, you see.
Oh shit, man! You were right. 72.
I knew it was
Yeah,
an
I
old,
even apologize.
oldie.
Yeah, that is an extreme.
But when you get into the '90s, it was almost like a change of cast. So
Big changes
it was,
of
and
cast.
it kind of corresponded with the changing cast from Saturday Night Live.
now,
Like as the '80s went on, guys like Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray
kind of started fading out.
and Chevy Chase and Steve Martin, like guys like that, kind of faded out, and you had
Made the odd appearance here and there
oh
in
yeah,
movies,
of course, but you had a new set of guys come in.
So
And
I would like to point out
one of
on
them.
I would like to point out on this note while you're getting to that. 90s, maybe even very late 80s, coming into the 90s. 29 years ago today, Keanu Reeves debuted on the screen with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. 29 years ago, so Reeves has been going for his time, but look at what he started out doing. Stoner comedy, Bill and Ted.
Which late '80s, early '90s, there was like a transition period where a lot of it was stoner comedy.
Stoner comedies. Even maybe coming up into the mid-90s, like Idle Hands was a hilarious movie, total stoner comedy once again, but
And then there were actual movies about
Stoners.
stoners, like Half Baked.
Half-Baked, totally hilarious. I love
That's
Half-Baked.
the Dave Chappelle one, right?
Dave
Half Baked,
Chappelle.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one with Bob Saget.
Saget?
You ever suck dick for weed? No.
Yeah. Talk about somebody with a potty mouth, Mr. Full House Dad.
If you've ever seen his
Like-
comedy, it is.
Oh, he is.
my god!
Holy
He's like,
shit, is he out there?
but there were a lot of guys like that put on a very wholesome appearance. But
Right.
their comedy was terrible. Like
Robin
Bob Saget-
Williams!
Robin Williams was another huge one.
Holy doggy doo-doo.
But yeah, you
Yeah.
seem to have a flip in the early '90s with not necessarily just SNL, because there were a few guys that came up out of that, like Mike Myers, obviously
Chris
with
Farley.
Wayne's World. Chris Farley was doing his movies. Adam Sandler
Was-
became
became
huge in the
huge.
mid to late '90s.
He started out doing his CDs and stuff, and then tapes and CDs
Yeah,
and stand-up
and-
comedy acts, and then
He was on SNL with all those guys: Mike Myers, Dana Carvey,
right. So
Chris Farley. But
so now when
I
you
think
start
one of the biggest ones that came in the early '90s, for sure. And he was not an SNL guy. He was actually an In Living Color guy, which was the show that aired. Basically, it was SNL's competition. And it was done by the Wayans brothers,
right,
and they had to have. I'm assuming they wanted to have one white guy,
token white guy,
and they had a man by the name of James Carey.
yeah,
And he played a lot of great characters on that show, like Death and Fire Marshal Bill. Some really good ones.
hilarious.
And he did a movie with one of the Wayans brothers too, back in I think it was the late '80s, called Earth Girls Are Easy with Jeff Goldblum.
Got to go back even earlier than that. Got to go back to at least '88, and he is in a Dirty Harry movie as a drugged out rock star who gets murdered in the beginning. He's in Deadpool.
Well, there you go.
I advise you not to watch it. It's the worst out of the Dirty Harry series, but it is.
But-
he is hilarious.
Then he
And
really kind of started making some movies, and I believe in 1994,
94.
was it 94? He had
$425,000 he got for Ace Ventura.
but he did Ace Ventura, followed that up with Dumb and Dumber, and
Dumb
followed
and
that up with The Mask.
Mask. Right.
In
Just
one
like that.
year, he had those four. And then in 1995, I think he did Ace Ventura 2 When Nature Calls and was in Batman Forever.
Batman Forever.
I wanna
Batman Forever was his first million. That was his first million or 6 million. I don't know, but either way, it was his first million that he wound up making. This poor guy was living out of his car. But he was the funniest thing walking the face of the planet, and God only knew how far he would go. You can't say Jim Carrey and not have a great Jim Carrey moment to relive in film, which is great because bringing up guys like Jim Carrey depicted what the 90s for comedy also. The 90s for comedy, when we started bringing in our Mike Myers and our Dana Carvey and our Chris Farley.
Just for the record, Earth Girls Are Easy came out like 2 or 3 months after the Deadpool.
Wow.
But okay, so
Yeah,
let's
that's
look at
it.
this. Okay, so actually, in order, I don't know if this is in order or not, but in '94 you had The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura. Then in '95 you had Batman Forever, Ace Ventura, When Nature Calls. In '96 you had The Cable Guy. '97 was Liar Liar. '98 was The Truman Show.
And we were making millions by
'99 was
this
Man on the Moon. Me, Myself, and Irene was 2000. The Grinch was 2000. The Majestic was 2001. Like, Bruce Almighty was 2003. Like, this
That was
guy
hot
was in
commodity.
everything for
Hot
that
commodity.
decade. From '94 to 2004. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind was 2004, and I think that's when
That was his big change.
that's
I
when
got
things
tired of
started to
doing
go down.
comedy.
He did Fun with Dick and Jane, which didn't do too much. The Number 23, Horton Hears a Who, Yes Man, like, yeah, Mr. Popper's Penguin. Then it changed for him.
Right.
But I mean, like, that decade from '94 to 2004, he was
10 years. He was the hot commodity.
the hot commodity. Everybody, he was comedy movies.
Yeah. So when we take a look at films like those in the last 10 years of Jim Carrey, or we take a look at Mike Myers, we take a look at other guys like that coming into the 90s started depicting attitude for comedy. And not just guys like that. Take a look at Home Alone. An 8-year-old kid in a funny movie, attitude.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm sorry, Macaulay Culkin, but like, 8-year-old kid in Home Alone with the way your part was written. I'm sorry, if you were my kid, I would have waffled you upside the head with your mouth. But that's what the 90s started depicting, was attitude. These guys had attitude. It was funny. It was funny attitude, and of course you couldn't help but laugh at it, of course.
But it definitely did.
The
a
attitude
shift
era
in-
started coming about with comedy. And then of course, sorry, we got into like action comedy that delivered funny attitude, and you know, these good guys would start delivering witty friggin' lines after they killed somebody. That's always been a thing, but it was delivered more with attitude and kinds of things like that.
Well, and another guy in the '90s that was huge, yet basically played the same character in everything he did, was Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
He was huge. Like, here, take a look at his thing. So, started off with Airheads.
Airheads.
In 94.
Good God, he was in that.
Yep, Billy. He was one of the main guys. He was the drummer, I think.
Oh my
He
God,
always
right.
He had the flannel shirt with the sleeves ripped off.
Right, man. I'm sorry. I had to remember back to Airheads.
But so we did Airheads in '94, Billy Madison in '95, which was
I love Billy.
amazing.
Madison.
Happy Gilmore
Happy
in '96,
Gilmore.
which is another one that's probably in my top 5 comedy.
Just
movies
picked
of
up
all
Happy
time.
Gilmore on Blu-ray. Love it.
He did Bulletproof in '96 with
Bulletproof. I remember that.
Damon Wayans.
Wedding Singer. Love
Wedding Singer was '98. The
98.
Waterboy was '98.
Love
Dirty
Waterboy.
Work was '98.
Oh my God.
Now he had a bit part.
Bit
in that
part
one,
in Dirty
but
Work.
still, Deuce Bigelow He had a bit part in that. But then 99, Big Daddy, Little Nicky.
These were movies that started becoming popular, and he became.
And then, of course, he was in The Animal and The Hot Chick, which were Rob Schneider movies.
Right.
But Mr. Deeds in 2002. And then he changed up a little bit and did Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, he
Anger
started getting
Management,
into the
Spanglish,
series.
50 First Dates, The Longest Yard, Click. And then he tried to make another run at comedy with You Don't Mess with the Zohan, but that was kind of
that
bad.
didn't go so hot.
And then he did 18 movies with David Spade and the guy from King of Queens.
Yeah.
And I still think he's making another 30 movies with David Spade and the guy from King of Queens and Chris Rock. But like Adam Sandler, like he was another one in the 90s. Like basically every funny movie you watched from 94 to 98 either had Adam Sandler or Jim Carrey.
Big one that I would like to get into too is guys that we see as regularly action stars that take their stab at comedy. So if we take a look, say, at like Bruce Willis, who was doing big with Die Hard and all that, Look Who's Talking. Let's go back to the 80s and let's take, at the time of what was popular with this baby that had attitude, that was voiced by Bruce Willis, and that was trying to conjure up a relationship between John Travolta and Kirstie Alley. Which Look Who's Talking back at the time when it was made was absolutely witty. And you don't get to see Bruce Willis, but he is the voice of the baby.
Yeah.
And for a guy that's 90% of the time doing action movies, he was funny.
Well, even John Travolta, like in that movie, like John Travolta does everything when it comes to
kind
roles.
of like,
but a lot of people would think of John Travolta as an action star more than anything else.
or
because
musicals, because you can dance, you can...
Well, true. I mean, like he did Grease, and was it Saturday Night Fever?
Yeah, he had Saturday Night Fever.
But I mean, he was in Tarantino, Pulp
But
Fiction.
Look Who's Talking goes way before that shite.
True, but I mean,
He can
when
do
you
pretty
think-
much whatever he wants.
true. But he's another guy that I would consider probably an action guy who took a stab at. And then
He can be quite witty.
look at Nicolas Cage. Every single action movie he's been in has kind of been a comedy, just because of his acting skills.
I hate Nicolas Cage. I'm sorry.
Who? Why? Where?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's like a steak with no pizzazz.
I found the Constitution of the United States.
But like, let's take a look at like, say, Schwarzenegger. He for a time took his stab at comedy.
Well,
with
he did. Kindergarten Cop.
Kindergarten Cop, Twins,
Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. Absolutely
Not just
hilarious.
a comedy. A Christmas comedy.
Christmas comedy. So yeah,
I mean, even Hulk Hogan took his stab at comedy movies with Suburban Commando and Mr. Nanny.
I can't even believe you brought that up. I kind of want to just walk out on you right now and just go home.
Come on, a wrestling fan like you, not a big fan of
Dude,
Hulk
I wasn't
Hogan
even a Hogan
comedy
fan.
movies.
I fucking hated Hogan. And I still hate Hogan. Savage.
Wow, someone didn't eat his vitamins and say his prayers. I was a Warrior fan myself back then. But anyway, I digress.
Even Stallone took his stab at comedy with like "Stop or My Mom Will Shoot." Which I'm sorry for bringing that up,
Well,
ladies and gentlemen.
another one, Jason Statham. What was the first movie Jason Statham was in? Snatch. Snatch was an action movie. Like that was one that was really a combination of action and comedy. Now,
Action comedy, big
if
time.
you don't like dry British wit, you probably didn't find it funny at all.
At all, yeah.
But
it's
even my
not what you're having.
grandmother, who is like a tiny little prim and proper British lady, told me, like, she watched it one night and she said it was a very good movie if they didn't swear so much.
Yeah, I'm sorry, swearing sells.
Well, yeah, but not when you're
Like, fuck the fucking fuckers. That's not my fucking problem. Okay,
But
yeah,
like-
so... like, just there are lots of different aspects of comedy when it comes out, and just
Didn't Vin Diesel do a comedy movie where he was protecting kids or something?
pacifier.
Yeah.
Right.
See? Never saw it. Never
So-
will. But
Comedy is always a thing, and it's like you can either sell it or you can't. You can either make it work or you can't. And I mean, even to this day, a lot of aspects of still old comedy are still used today. And
well, I mean, what was the original, like some of the original comedy stuff? when you think about it. Like going back, like Charlie Chaplin, Three Stooges.
Right, Three
People
Stooges.
getting hurt. The
Right.
pratfall, if you will. Chris Farley
Little Rascals.
really brought it back in the 90s, I think, with the pratfall, where like you look at Tommy Boy or
Black Sheep. Shit like that.
anything like that.
We
What was the Kung Fu?
The Hustle?
No,
No.
the hell ninja movie, Beverly Hills Ninja.
Beverly Hills Ninja.
Like those were ones where basically Chris Farley would act really awkward and then throw himself through a wall or through a table, and it was hilarious. Now,
Because people getting hurt is hilarious.
so here's a whole other type of comedy. Johnny Knoxville has
Right.
made an entire multi-million-dollar career off
Out
of
of
hurting himself and his friends.
And his friends.
And
Right.
and I mean,
And they
and
turn these into
for a
movies.
little while in the late 2000s, early 2000s,
Early 2000s, late
I want to
90s.
say late 90s.
Late
But even
90s.
even up till in the last like 7 or 8 years, even the Jackass stuff.
Right.
Like it started as like a stupid little show on MTV, and then it turned into like 4 or 5
Huge
movies.
thing. So any of you out there that
So
has
keep
ever,
talking about it for a minute. I gotta go get the plug for this thing because it's gonna
Right.
die.
any of you out there who have that are going to sit there and say to yourself, I have never laughed at somebody getting hurt. I'm sorry. I got to call shenanigans on that because I'm sorry, but I have to say that as long as it's not happening to you, it is hilarious. And movies like Jackass and Chris Farley's stuff and what have you, was hilarious, and he did go on that aspect of hurting himself, and I'm sorry, we all laughed. Even certain things like Dumb and Dumber to a small extent, going back to that, like where Jim Carrey gets Jeff Daniels to eat the hot peppers. God, nobody likes hot peppers. Hot peppers freaking burn, man. It's the horrible stuff. But what did we do? We all laughed at it. The Turbo Lax. You are hurting your friends. Which turned out, once again, I'm going to sit there, the hilarious toilet humor. And
But even and not just the with Jackass 2, it wasn't just Johnny Knoxville getting hurt or hurting his friends, though that was a big part of it. But there was also the pranks involved in it too, where you get the pranks that they would play on each other. The one that I always remember is like, and this is why these guys are such good friends, is because I would do it to Sean in a heartbeat, and that's things like they knew that Bam Margera was terrified of snakes, terrified. So they make him fall into a pit with a bunch of rubber snakes, and he's freaking out even though they're rubber. And then as he's trying to climb out, they throw a bunch of real snakes in. Now the snakes are too far to actually get him, and he's clinging onto the edge of this thing, and he's begging for help, and they're not picking him up, and he's bawling because he is so scared. And I just thought that was amazing, because these guys, they're not just working together, they're actual friends. Because the only way that when you get out of that pit that you don't actually murder everybody on set is if you guys are actually really good friends. And it's the same thing with Bam Margera and him pranking his parents all the time. Like if I ever did any one of those pranks to my father, I wouldn't be here to do a
you're out to
podcast
be
with you.
grass.
I would be dead.
Yeah.
And my dad used to carry a gun to work so he could make it happen.
You have to say though, and I do agree with your concept of like your friends are a big thing when it comes to doing things like this and working with your friends. If they're your friends, you should trust your friends. Sure, whatever's going to happen to you, obviously, is going to hurt. But your friends are there, and I guess you have to place trust in your. Sorry, Robbie.
I was going to
for
say,
all
I
your
think
past.
Robbie would not agree with anything you're saying right now.
Hey,
Because I'm pretty
we
sure
helped him.
Well, true, but that was after he broke his spine. But anyway, it's not our fault. We just came up with the ideas. We didn't actually make him do them. But the prank stuff was good too. But like, so anyway, rewinding a little bit and getting back to say Jason Statham in Snatch. He wasn't the only one in that movie that was taking a stab at comedy. Brad Pitt was
Brad
in that
Pitt
movie.
for
and
his
Brad
first-
Pitt was actually hilarious.
He was
in that
freaking
movie.
hilarious. In
But
that.
again, it was British humor, which some people don't really appreciate. But I'll tell you, another movie on my top 10, top 5, whatever list of comedy movies. I think I can still say top 5 because I've only said that this will be the third one I put in there.
Third.
Well, Dumb and Dumber would be in there too, so I'm up to 4. But anyway, would be Shaun of the Dead.
Love Shaun of the
Shaun
Dead.
of the Dead. I remember, I knew nothing about this movie, but I remember walking by the Aztec Theater in Kincardine, may it rest in peace, and there was a poster for the next movie coming up, and it was just a guy standing there in a shirt and tie with a cricket bat, and it said Shaun of the Dead, a romantic comedy with zombies.
Right.
And I thought, you know what? I got to check this movie out, and it was hilarious.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. What I found it most funny is it depicted real concepts, I think, of what people would fucking do in a zombie apocalypse. Don't be sitting there talking to me right now about you would know what to do in a zombie apocalypse because you'd shit your pants. Okay?
That's true.
You'd shit your pants. I don't care. And that's what made this so funny. I mean, guys were totally oblivious to whatever the fuck was going on.
Well, that's the thing. It was like a zombie apocalypse for 3 days before they realized.
Right.
And then they tried to kill the
Like,
first
what the fuck
zombie
were
by
they doing
throwing...
again? Like just sitting on their couch,
they were
watching
just-
TV or playing video games or
Yeah.
some shit?
Yep. And he walked out into the zombie apocalypse to the grocery store and
Right.
bought something and went home and still didn't realize it was
Right,
an apocalypse.
because if you don't care what's going on in the world, you don't care.
and then the first zombie shows up and they try to kill her with his record collection
Right.
by frisbeeing the
Frisbeeing
records at her and
records.
trying to stick them in her face and
Right.
kill her. But like it was and it was great because it was like, okay, these two stupid friends, what are they going to do? Well, let's get my mom. Let's get my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, because she just dumped me. And
Right.
let's go to our local bar that we like and just have a beer.
Is you
Just wait for all this to
wait
blow
for
over.
all this to blow over. And if I do die, well, I have just consumed a shitload of alcohol, so I don't really give
And
two rat's
it was
ass.
the subtle things. Like one of my favorite parts of that movie is when the jukebox comes on and they're all 4 of them are in a circle beating the zombie with pool cues in time to the Queen song.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
it just, and again, it's that British humor that some people find hilarious and some people are just kind of like, I don't get why this is funny.
Now, okay, so I'm sorry, man. I got to skip out of Shaun of the Dead for a second because you talking about the beating the zombie to the beat of the
Queen song.
Queen song, right? So even though there's only one of this movie and it's one of a friggin' kind, if you've ever had a job, Office Space,
Office Space is amazing.
absolutely hilarious. And I only thought of that because when they kicked the living shit out of the
Printer.
printer, paper
Copy
printer,
or whatever.
photocopier.
I still think
whatever
my
the fuck it
favorite thing
is.
of that movie is, no, I'd say in a given week I only do about 15 minutes of real actual work.
And everything in the movie is everything you hate about the job, from your boss to the corporate fucking assholes wearing suits.
That was a good movie.
And that one fucking guy that you just keep in the fucking corner cubicle that nobody fucking pays attention to, but hey, he's there as part of the team. Even though you're in the corner, in a cubicle.
But no one talks to you.
But nobody talks to you, and then you just become ratty and squirrely, and...
But like, so going back to Shaun of the Dead and taking it another direction was Simon Pegg and Nick Frost doing Hot Fuzz.
doing Hot Fuzz. Hot Fuzz, absolutely hilarious. So here we are taking cop movies, or cop films, action cop films, well, this is what I would be if I was a total fuck up in a cop film. And
Well, the thing is, the Simon Pegg character is not. He's like super cop. But he gets in trouble, so they send him to the small town
because he's fucked.
where there are a bunch of fucking morons.
a bunch of...
And
Right.
he has to try to deal with the local townsfolk. And it's almost like if it was set in the US, it would be like a cop from New York City or LA getting sent to some small town in Alabama.
Right.
Except he
you're
gets
an
sent
idiot.
to some small town in England.
Right.
And it was just hilarious. That whole movie. Again, just a little, British humor type stuff. And then again, they did another movie together with Seth Rogen as the voice of the alien.
Oh,
The hell was that
What
one
was the
called?
alien one?
I'm blanking.
Sorry, Seth Rogen, but
But
Okay,
It's where they find the alien and they
so let's
basically have to
let's
take
talk
him
about
across the
Seth
country.
Rogen
Yeah.
for a moment, because he brought into like new things of today kind of comedy.
See, and that's the thing, and like we were talking about, like you had the Dan Aykroyds and the John Candys of the 80s,
the 80s.
you know, going into the Jim Carreys and Adam Sandlers of the 90s, which I think kind of turned into the Seth Rogen
right,
and all his friends, Paul
Which-
Rudd,
right, which
you know,
started
guys like
depicting
that.
which started depicting back again with things with us. So let's take a look at like Superbad.
Superbad was hilarious.
Superbad was hilarious, and again, we moved out of like 2000, and we moved into more like now like 2000. What's Superbad?
I
2010,
think it's 2007.
2007.
But like you're getting into the later 2000s.
Right,
You're getting
so-
more into today.
We're moving a little bit more into now kinds of things like oh my god, we're not doing the oh my god, I realize I just love this girl. Now we've moved into the era of that's right, I'm going to a party, I'm gonna get laid because this is my chance to prove that I'm not a loser. I'm gonna walk in here like I'm king shit. I went and bought some beer and with a fake ID and my whole night winds up going to shit. And
You're right. It just says McLovin.
Yeah.
You don't even have a first name.
yeah, like you know, so
But
kinds
see,
of things.
and that was comedy movies took on a different tone with the Seth Rogen, and not necessarily with Seth Rogen, but well, with all of them, with Seth Rogen, with James Franco doing them, Paul Rudd, like all those guys, but Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, Jesse Eisenberg, like they took on. It was more of an awkward comedy. You know what I mean? Like the acting, the delivery was a little bit more awkward than it was perfectly timed.
Right,
Like
it
that was Michael Cera. He almost didn't seem like he was a comedy actor acting. He just seemed like a genuinely funny, awkward little nerdy kid
Yeah,
that someone just stuck a camera in front of his face. You know what I mean?
right. He'd be
It-
that
it
kid you
almost-
walk by in the halls in high school and just shove him up against the wall and just.
Like it almost gave it a more like authentic or realistic feel to some of those.
Right. It seemed like we weren't trying so hard. We didn't reek of effort.
Yeah, like even the script didn't seem like it was so much a script. Like it felt like there was a little more ad-libbing to it. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed more.
So if we take like Zombieland for example, which
Yeah.
I don't know if it was him or Jesse Eisenberg.
It was Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse
'cause
Eisenberg.
They're easily confusable. Though.
But again, it was great because, like, you know, he'd be running away from the zombies and it would be like, right, remember, rule number 2, got in the car, buckle up my seatbelt. And then, you know, he'd drive away in the car or, you know, whatever. Yeah,
But-
definitely a lot more realism. It didn't seem like it just seemed like we took this, like you said, this dorky kid, we threw him in this fucked up situation, and
we just
okay,
had
go.
a camera on him. So yeah,
and it was like, okay, go.
see what you can do. And,
Yeah,
and,
see
the,
what
and the
you can
thing
do.
is, all of those, this new generation of the comedy actors, they all came together for, I think it was 2013, for This Is the End.
What's this is the end?
This Is the End is the one where, God, what's his name? Jay Baruchel goes down to visit Seth Rogen in California, and they're playing themselves. And they're hanging out, and then Seth Rogen drags him to the party at James Franco's house. And then the apocalypse starts. And everyone starts dying.
Right.
Like
Oh my
Michael
God.
Cera dies, Rihanna dies, Aziz Ansari dies. Like all of these
forgot
guys
all about
die,
that shit.
and there's basically the 5 of them or 6 of them basically have to try to. There's James Franco, Seth Rogen, Jay Baruchel. Drawing a blank on his name, and it's going to bug me. But then Danny McBride shows up,
Right.
and
oh
like
my God. I totally forgot that movie ever
And-
existed.
what was Jonah Hill, and what was so good about it is that all of them were playing themselves.
Themselves.
Like and they were playing themselves as though it was in their daily lives. And then and it even went so far as because Jay Baruchel did stuff with Seth Rogen back in the day. They worked together, and then Seth Rogen moved to L.A. with everybody else, became part of that group. But Jay Baruchel stayed in Montreal,
Oh.
and that was like kind of the whole premise of the movie was. He goes down there, and their friendship is tested when Seth Rogen finds out that Jay Baruchel had been to L.A. a couple of months before and never stopped by. And Jay Baruchel doesn't want to hang out with Seth Rogen's celebrity friends. He hates Jonah Hill. Like, hates him.
Oh.
And it's hilarious. So they're all kind of playing themselves. Craig Robinson is the other guy whose name I couldn't think of. But, like, the cast in this movie, like, just to run through really quickly, just the main cast of it. James Franco, Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, Jay Baruchel, Danny McBride, Craig Robinson, Michael Cera, Emma Watson, Mindy
my God.
Kaling, Rihanna, Paul Rudd, Channing Tatum, Kevin Hart, Aziz Ansari. Like, the cast in it was just absolutely insane. And they're basically
Huge cast.
all playing each other. The Backstreet Boys were in it.
Who's
as the
directed?
Backstreet
Who
Boys.
directed?
I don't know, but I'm going to say it was probably the guy. Oh, it was actually Evan Goldberg. Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen
Right. Okay.
directed it.
Wow. I had totally
And-
forgot
and,
that existed, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
And Evan Goldberg, he did This Is the End, but he also did Superbad, Sausage Party. So he like works with Seth Rogen a lot from the looks of it.
So things that I just had a big go on, and I know that we were all fans, and if you're fans of comedy movies, these ones certainly should not skip your mind or anything like that. And we're definitely going to hit a name when I certainly mention one of these: Euro Trip and Road Trip. Tom fucking Green.
Okay,
Road Trip.
Road Trip was good.
Absolutely
Road Trip was good.
hilarious. Who hasn't been on a road trip like that? Okay, maybe not to that extent, but who hasn't been on a road trip like that?
Well, and that one had, I want to call him Stifler, but I know that's actually not his name. Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott. Breckin Meyer, like that's back when he was big.
DJ Qualls.
DJ Qualls. I can't believe you remember that.
DJ Qualls was awesome because he was in The New Kid.
The new
As
kid,
well.
right.
And I'm a fan of a TV show called Supernatural, and he's been in it a couple times as a werewolf. But anyway, there was that movie was good, and that movie had one of the weirdest things I've ever seen, which is when they open the door and it's just Tom Green and then, Daddy, would you like some sausage?
No, that's Freddie Got Fingered.
Was that Freddie Got Fingered?
It's Freddie Got Fingered. But
Okay,
yeah, man,
that movie
that's some
was
fucked up shit.
Is that the one where he drives like the '97 Chrysler LeBaron convertible and he's all proud of it? Is it Freddie Got
I'm
Fingered?
pretty sure it is. And he finds soap on a rope too. And
I'll never like that was in my nightmares for like a year. With like, Daddy,
would you like some sausage? But
Daddy, would you like some sausage?
It's
Daddy,
utterly horrible.
Would you like some? Daddy, would you like some sausage? So, but as good as Road Trip was, I liked Euro Trip.
Euro Trip, friggin' hilarious. Great soundtrack, great characters.
First off, the beginning of it, where the band comes up and plays Scotty Doesn't Know, and it's Matt fucking Damon.
Of all people.
Is like decked out like a rock star. Like a
You know
goth
what? He
rock
did a
star.
good job. I fucking hate Matt Damon, but good fucking job.
And it's a good job to the point where I actually had to go back to look and see if it was Matt Damon. Because I didn't click right. I knew I recognized him, but it didn't click right away that holy shit, that's Matt Damon. But there was that and the whole this isn't where I parked my car. And you've got something on your boob there.
Yeah. Okay. So now, what made Euro Trip stick out? Besides, what's her name? Michelle Trachtenberg.
Yeah.
Okay. So besides her, there was nobody in it that I knew. Really, as like main stars, stars. And it was friggin' funny.
The girl at the beginning who broke up with him, for Matt Damon.
Right.
She starred in Smallville for years as
yeah, man, I still didn't know who she is.
But yeah, like I recognized her. No, I didn't really watch Smallville, but I recognized her from that show.
But even the girl that he goes chasing after, I had no idea who she was.
I knew Michelle Trachtenberg because I was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
But
that was it. Like
she's the only one I friggin' knew.
But she still didn't have star power.
No,
at that point,
star
right?
power.
But who was the soccer hooligan?
Oh,
Vinnie Jones.
Vinnie Jones.
And I love Vinnie Jones.
Vinnie Jones is awesome.
Like he was great in Snatch as Bullet Tooth Tony.
Yep.
He was awesome in Gone in 60 Seconds.
And he's
like
another guy that varies in different parts. He can be pretty much anything he wants to be.
But he was the one when he was playing that soccer hooligan who was like obsessed with Manchester United. Like that to me felt like they didn't tell him to act. Like,
No.
they were, you know what I mean?
These
Like,
were real Manchester United guys, and like, hey, we just started
hey,
going bust
it
with
is
them,
on
and-
it is on my bucket list to go to Manchester and drink in a pub with guys like that before we go to a Manchester United game.
You better know.
That is on
You
my
better know the
fucking
fucking
bucket
theme because I know.
Glory, glory, Man United. Of course I do. I'm an actual fan.
I
So
didn't
I'm
say
not.
you were.
I'm not going to sing some. Oh yeah, I got the
Got
flag
yeah,
up
you
on
got
the
the
wall,
flag, man.
the banner. Now I'm not. If you're not
You
a
better
man,
be a motherfucking fan.
if you're not a mank, you're a wank. But anyway,
I'm a wank, by the way.
I forget what song he tried to sing.
Yeah, I
But-
can't remember,
but
but
it
he certainly
wasn't.
fucks it up.
Oh, he does. But
Um,
like everything about
Euro
like,
trip was
when they go to the girl's apartment and the little brother draws the little Hitler
funniest thing
mustache on
I've
and
ever seen in
starts
my whole
doing the
entire
Hitler,
life.
starts doing the goose step
Now,
salute thing.
I do have to say, as much of I'm so not a fan of upstaging in a film. If I'm supposed to be focusing on one fucking thing in the movie, that's what I
You
want
don't
to be
want to see
focusing on.
something in the background,
But
but that kid.
you know what? Best upstaging I have ever seen in a film, ever. I'm sorry if it seems racist, but it's the greatest friggin' upstaging I have ever seen in my whole entire life. If you've never seen Euro Trip, just that one scene
I would
is
recommend
worth watching the film for.
So okay, so I'm trying to think what I.
Another
So
good,
what if I? Oh, sorry. Go on.
sorry, another good one that I got to say, where an actor really stuck out that was not comedy concept wise, Tropic Thunder. And if you have never seen that, my face hit the floor when a friend of mine told me that was Tom Cruise as
Yep.
the government fucking
Did
guy.
we see that one in the theater? Like I went to see it in the theater.
You might have
Did
gone
you?
with Ryan. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, it might have been like I think
Because
it was
McGarry's a
Ryan,
big-
Rob, and Ryan, Rob, and Robbie.
Right.
That's a lot of R's. I think we all went, but
I certainly didn't.
yeah, when we finally figured out that what was his name, Les or whatever,
Les the
Gold-
government guy.
Les Goldman or something like
Les
that.
Goldman.
No, he was the producer.
Oh, was he the producer?
He was
I thought he was an actual government guy that they
No,
called in
no,
to pull
he
them
was-
out of the situation.
no, he was like the producer of the movie
Of the
because
movie.
that's why Owen Wilson or not Owen Wilson,
Not still.
Lincoln commercial guy, Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey.
All right. That guy. He went to him because Jack Black didn't have his TiVo. And he was the agent, so he went to Les Goldman, and Les Goldman was basically like, I will take off your fucking head,
Yeah,
you
like-
stupid little... Like, it was,
I have most unbelievable. I don't like Tom Cruise anymore. He's a complete wiener. But
yeah. But you
that
know
had
what?
been the funniest thing I'd ever
But
seen in
not
my
just
whole life.
but not just that. Jack Black as the stupid guy who's going through heroin withdrawals.
Right. Robert Downey Jr. is
Robert
the black
Downey
guy.
Jr. playing an Australian guy who's playing a black man.
guy.
Then you got Jake Baruchel.
Jake Baruchel. Right.
He was the other one, and he was like the kid who'd never really been in a movie before, but
Yeah.
or hadn't really done anything. He was the
Tropic
one.
Thunder
He was the
was-
one guy who wasn't the star because the other guy, I don't know if he was an actor. I think he was a rapper, and he had the booty juice. Was his
Right.
company thing. So like
Yeah.
you get these three like big name movie stars, and then like the kid who's just up and coming,
Right.
only been in indie films, kind of thing. But no, that one was
Tropic Thunder
that was a good movie.
absolutely-
Danny McBride was in that one too. He was the pyrotechnic expert.
Yeah, and I like that as well. And it's just again like I like seeing things like that. I'm not saying they all work out or anything like that, but guys that don't normally take their stab at comedy shit. And again, I've always said this before. If you're gonna make a movie and you need people to be in it, look for the opposite of what you want. Like a prime example would be like, take Denzel Washington. He's always like the young Morgan Freeman of friggin' movies. I mean, he's always Mr. Wisdom and friggin' knowledge. I'm the kind guy. Oh, look at what he did in Training Day. His concept of a corrupt cop had to be, I can't think of a movie with a more corrupt cop than friggin' Denzel Washington as Alonzo Harris.
I
Always look for the opposite of what you want. You give somebody a chance to be something that they are not.
always like the comedy movies where you don't like the lower budget ones where you don't really know anybody. Like you look at like Kevin Smith when he did
Clerks.
Clerks or Jay
Clerks.
and Silent Bob. Like you didn't know any of the actors because they were his friends growing up.
Right. And
But-
these are made on minuscule
But every now and
budgets.
then you'd get Ben Affleck would show up because Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith are friends. So
And that's cool, man, because
when-
these big names help get these little films off the ground.
well,
and
and the thing that I loved about it was when Dogma came out. It was a Kevin Smith movie, and it had Jay and Silent Bob in it. They were some of the main characters. But all of a sudden, it's like Kevin Smith called in all his favors to all his
Right.
friends
right.
that he'd met in Hollywood.
I need
and
to make this
basically
movie
said,
happen.
I'm doing sort of a Jay and Silent Bob type movie, but I want some star power in it. And you never really heard much about Dogma, but all of a
No.
sudden the movie starts, and you've got the main actress, and I don't know who she is, but she meets up with Jay and Silent Bob, which is Jason Mewes and Kevin Smith. But then the angel Metatron comes to visit her, and it's Alan Rickman.
Yeah. And that's
and then,
awesome.
And then they meet up with a prophet, and it's Chris Rock. And then they're being chased by a demon who was played by Jason. My name is Earl.
Oh.
You know who I'm talking about.
Yes.
Chasing him, and then they run into the Muse, who's played by Selma Hayek. And the whole time, they're trying to get to New Jersey to stop a priest, played by George Carlin, from
Huge names.
accidentally allowing two angels, played by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
And Matt Damon.
And it was just like, for a movie with that much star power, it really, like, a lot of people haven't even heard of it,
Heard of Dogma.
let alone seen it. Now, if you're, I don't know if it's a great movie to watch if you're religious. If you're not religious, it's hilarious.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely
the whole
hilarious.
point of the movie was these two angels have been sent to Earth because they disobeyed God.
Again, though.
So the whole point is that God is infallible and you can't prove him wrong.
Again, though.
So God said to these angels, you are never allowed to enter heaven. But this Catholic priest is making the church archway something where when you walk through it, you're instantly forgiven for all your sins. And because he's a Catholic priest and he said that this is what it is, he speaks on behalf of God, which makes it law. If these two angels pass through it, then if they pass through it and then die, they go straight to heaven. But God had told them they would never be allowed to be back in heaven again, which means it's proven that God is fallible and the universe ceased to exist just like that.
Right.
And at the very end of the movie, God shows up, who's Alanis Morissette.
Right. I remember
Like-
that.
Just the star power in that movie was crazy.
Again, though, I got to go back to your comment about, if you're a religious person, this movie probably isn't for you or anything like that. And I did a movie review write-up the other day on my Facebook page, ladies and gentlemen, of Crank. Now, Crank is a Jason Statham film. In a quick summary, if people haven't seen it out there, he plays a hitman, messes up somewhere along the way, and these guys order out a hit on him, and they inject him with some Chinese synthetic poison. And when he comes to, he just has to keep his heart pumping, just by any means necessary. And when I say by any means necessary, I mean by any means necessary. And I actually wrote at the end of the review that you have to suspend all disbelief for this movie, or you're not going to have any fun when you watch it. And I think most films out there these days, like Dogma, like you said, when you said, like, if you're not a religious person, this movie probably isn't for you. You have to go into most movies these days, or any movie at any due point in time, just suspending disbelief. It's a film. Okay, it's not reality. It's not. Hell, even movies that are based on true stories are not actual or reality because it's been twisted and turned around a little bit for the concept of the movie. If you don't suspend disbelief, you can't have any film fun while watching a film.
Can I draw a comparison between Crank and another movie?
Mm-hmm.
Speed. Jason
Awesome.
Statham is the bus.
Right.
His
But
heart
it's true.
is the bomb.
It's true though.
What was
Like,
that Simpsons quote? What was that great movie, Marge? It was about that bus that kept speeding around and it couldn't, and it had to keep its speed up and it couldn't go below a certain speed, so it had to keep speeding around. I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
You know,
So
but
anyway.
but that's true. Like that's what the whole movie is. He just can't stop moving. Whether he drives his car through a mall and crashes into a whole bunch of stuff and drives up an escalator and then crashes his car on the escalator to banging
that chick.
that chick on the side of the street to falling out of a helicopter and fighting a guy and splatting on the street and somehow living. You have to suspend all disbelief for films, especially comedy films, because they're just ridiculous. They're just ridiculous.
Some are, for sure.
You know, even like one of my favorite comedy films that I like to watch, that it's so stupid, I laugh and I have to keep watching it. It's Saving Silverman, which again, romantic comedy, much more comedy than romantic, but it is just utterly so wittily stupid. And I don't even know if wittily is a word, but I'm so using that word.
Dude, Judith's getting away.
Durr! Like it's just between Jason Biggs, Steve Zahn, and Jack Black. I mean, it's funny. It's funny. Lee Emery in the film is funny. Amanda Peet in the film is funny. Neil Diamond is in the film, and he's funny.
You know, and that's
it.
He's another guy.
Neil Diamond.
No,
I'm sorry, man. I just finished on
Jack
my last.
Black.
Okay.
Jack Black's another guy who kind of took over a little bit.
Coming out with Tenacious D.
Yeah, like when you're looking at late 90s, early 2000s, like that transition period, but a little bit before Seth Rogen, but a little bit after Sandler and Jim Carrey. That's when you really got like Will Ferrell. And
right, your Will Ferrell started coming in.
Yeah,
and
Will Ferrell, Jack Black, like those guys kind of took over the reins for a little while.
Right.
But see, Will Ferrell, he did a bunch of movies and stuff, but there was nothing I was overly... Like, there's no Will Ferrell movie I'll watch and think's hilarious. Like, Old School's okay. Like,
yeah.
there's some good movies, but there's nothing... Like, I mean, he didn't have a Happy Gilmore.
No.
Or an Ace Ventura.
Yeah. To me, Will Ferrell was a guy that worked well in bit parts. Like,
Yeah.
The Wedding Crashers, I love him in The Wedding Crashers. Friggin' hilarious. Which is another good romantic comedy. And romantic comedies, to me, I think, are another really big thing. Of course, they work out well with the comedy aspect of, like, a relationship. Of course, there's that mushy moment. But all the hijinks ensue in there, like The Ugly Truth, which I think is friggin' hilarious with Gerard Butler and Katherine Heigl, I think.
Yep.
Which I thought was totally hilarious. Another... I wouldn't say this is romantic comedy. This is romantic comedy adventure. But Romancing the Stone was another great one. Had great, hilarious moments between this romantic writer that has to go down to South America, meets up with this adventurer. They go on this adventure together. But great hijinks and comedy ensue throughout the whole entire thing. And of course, they wind up falling in love after the whole entire thing. But romantic...
But see, that's what I don't like about romantic comedies, is it always works out in the end.
Right.
And that's not real life.
No, it's not real life.
Or at least it's not my real life.
Real life to me, a good real life to me comedy, and again, I'm going to apologize in advance for saying this, because I do find the film witty, and it has nothing to do with guys or anything like that, is Mean Girls. Mean Girls has to be one of my favorite funny movies to watch. I will seriously say that. It is utterly just... It is what it is. It's Mean Girls.
You know how sometimes you have those moments in life where you're just like, why are we friends?
Yeah. Is this one of those moments?
I'm having one of those moments right now. Like, what was my top 5? Dumb and Dumber? Like, what's your Mean Girls?
Okay, you know what? I never gave a top 5 list throughout this whole entire fucking podcast.
I haven't actually given an official top 5.
No, I haven't given an official top 5.
I would like to try to give an official top 5. So, okay, because there's one I'm going to put on here that we haven't actually talked about yet, because we haven't really segued into it. I guess we could have, but there was a point where I was going to, and then we went somewhere else. But anyway, so I love Dumb and Dumber. Ace Ventura. Dogma's right up there for me. American Pie is definitely on my list. But another one that's way up on my list, Super Troopers.
Wow. And I was actually going to touch on Super Troopers as well myself when we started talking about cop shit.
Well, yeah, when we were talking about Hot Fuzz, that's
Hot
when I was
Fuzz.
going to... But
I was
Super
thinking
Troopers to
at the same
me,
time.
I don't know. For some reason, I just found that whole movie hilarious.
And it is hilarious.
Like, starting out with pulling the kids over, and the snozberries taste like snozberries. You know, right through to syrup chugging.
Super Troopers to me...
Hey, you! Bear fucker!
To me, Super Troopers is a movie where I always ask myself a question. Like, think about what kind of a person you are
Like,
right now.
what would happen if you and me and a couple of our other friends were the highway patrol?
We'd be fired.
Yeah, it would probably
We'd be
Super
probably thrown in
Troopers.
jail.
They would be getting ready to shut our station down.
Right. But like as I was saying, like take yourself today, what you are right now. What if you were a cop? What kind of cop would you be? What would you want to do as a police officer?
I'd beat unarmed teenagers. I
Yeah.
think.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
That's dark.
I'm
That's
kidding.
so deep for
I'm
a
kidding.
comedy
I would
podcast.
confiscate all the drugs and sell them for profit. But in a
Never
hilarious
has to
way.
work again.
But in a hilarious way, keeping with the theme. No, I mean, I probably want to play the meow game.
Yeah, like you would probably.
I would be.
I'm the
would
one
be
that has
that
the
cop.
badge. You're gonna do
I
what
would
I
be
say.
the cop that would go through the drive-through and ask for a liter of cola just to see if anyone gets it.
Just yeah,
And,
exactly.
and you know what? Like, and it was funny because I watched Super Troopers one time with my dad, and it was one of those ones where he laughed a bunch, but he was trying to keep a straight face through it. And every now and then he would just be like, "Yeah, they wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't be allowed to do that." So on my dad's very last night as a police officer, he dropped around to my work, and I sat in the car with him for a few minutes because I figured it's the last time I'd be voluntarily in the seat of a police car. And so we were talking, and I tried to convince him because I was working at McDonald's, and I tried to convince him to go through the drive-through and order a liter of cola.
Peter Cole.
And I'm like, "Dad, just pull up to the thing, and I'll be like, 'Can I take your order?' And you can say, 'I'd like a liter of cola.' And when I'm like, 'I don't know what that is,' you can be like, 'Liter is French for give me some fucking cola.' And he's like, 'I'm not gonna do that.' And I was like, 'But it's your last day.
Yeah.
Please do it.' He didn't do it. But I was like, I'm working with like 6 people in there who would find it hilarious.
But
Nope.
But you know what? Like, and you know what? That's beauty aspects of comedy. And as you said, like, you know, your dad finding aspects of Super Troopers funny. And the fact that your dad watched everything, my parents wouldn't watch that with me. But my dad kind of falls into the same concept as my dad's, if he had, like, his sense of humor is very dry and it's very out there. But you know what? There is still comedy out there that can get my dad to laugh, and even if it's something that he won't even watch. Like, my pops hates The Simpsons, but he will laugh at Groundskeeper Willie any given day of the week. My dad's a Scotsman.
I was going to say
so
that's because your dad is Scotsman.
my dad's a Scotsman.
Because your
so
dad probably has friends and family back in Scotland that are groundskeeper Willie.
probably, like, they would probably climb in a sink and bathe themselves with Ajax and, like, what the fuck ever. And they,
It's bonjour, you cheesy surrender monkey.
that probably happens as well. But and so like comedy can touch anybody at any due point in time, just anywhere. Whether it be television, whether it be sitcoms, whether it be stand-up comedian stuff on a CD, in a movie, depending on whatever you find funny, which I'm not going back to say again what I find funny.
Mean Girls, Lindsay Lohan. Anyway,
Oh, please, like you didn't find fucking Lindsay Lohan hot in that goddamn movie.
like before she was all cracked out. Like, I find her hotter now because I think I could get with her. Like, if I decided to go drinking in a trailer park, there's a good chance it could happen. But so, another movie.
I thought you would have at least said before she turned into a snotty bitch, like when she was African Katie Herring. Which, yes, I know her name.
Oh my god!
Please leave me alone.
Another movie that I, like we don't need to go into detail with, but I want to throw it out there because It's another one of my favorites. And I mean, I don't know how I would classify it really. I guess I would classify it as a superhero movie or an action movie, but Deadpool was
Deadpool was
fucking
friggin'
hilarious.
hilarious.
And
Action
I
comedy.
cannot wait for the second Deadpool. I
Yeah.
can't wait for the second Super Troopers that's coming out this summer.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. Definitely.
But like
That might be the next time I actually go to a movie theater.
we should go see that. Deadpool 2 or Super Troopers 2.
I'd probably want to see Super Troopers 2 first before
Alright.
Deadpool 2 because if they fuck up Deadpool 2, I'm gonna be gravely, soulfully heartbroken.
But okay, so watching movies with dads. So when I moved up north, my dad and my brother and my mom helped me move up there. So my mom goes to bed at like 9 o'clock. My dad, my brother, and I, we order a pizza. We're watching a movie. We were watching Step Brothers, which is probably the funniest Will Ferrell movie. We're watching it, and I remember my dad takes a big swig of his beer just as the lady says to whatever his name was, Dale or whatever,
Dale.
I would like to roll you up into a little ball and stuff you inside my vagina. And I remember my dad spit his beer all over the floor. And all three of us, him and my brother and I, were on the floor crying. We were laughing so hard. And my mom comes out of the room and she's like, "What's so funny? Tell me what's so funny." And we're all just like, "No, we're not, no." My dad's like, "Oh, it's just a part in this movie." And she's like, "Well, tell me, what was so funny about it?" My dad's just like, "Nope, just go back to bed, please."
See, and that's even better when, like, sure, the shit in the movie is funny, but people's reactions to it afterwards is even funnier than what's just happened in the movie. And like, I love things
And
like
you know
that.
what?
as
I
well.
think that's what it is too. Like, I love watching comedy movies alone. I think it's hilarious. But sitting with like 5 or 6 people drinking a beer and watching a comedy movie is even better.
Okay, so let me ask you a thing here, and since I've already disclosed certain things that I do find humorous that I laugh at, what do you consider your biggest thing that you would laugh at in any comedy movie? Like what would be your, this is gonna get me just rolling on the floor laughing. Myself personally, it's people hurting themselves or getting hurt, something like that. The concept of how it happens is just, it's funny. It's
See,
ridiculous.
It's hard to explain it. But like in Super Troopers, when Favre was like, I want a liter of cola. Well, I don't know what that is. Liter's French for give me some fucking cola. Like just when you don't expect what they're gonna say next.
Right.
Like in Step Brothers, when she's just like, I want to roll you up in a little ball and put you in my vagina. Like just
Yeah.
what the fuck? Like little things like that where you just
See, I also do like things like that, like witty, just witty banter back and forth almost. Like one of my favorite lines for a film is from the second Airplane movie, and this supposedly takes place in the future, and they're taking this space shuttle to the moon.
yeah.
Because all these people are going to go live on the moon, and the space shuttle is called the XR-2300, and main star in the film looks at this newspaper. He's in a mental hospital, and this doctor's with him and gives him this newspaper, and he looks at the paper, and it says, like, right on the front page, launching XR-2300 today. And the guy says, "My God, they're launching the XR-2300. Do you know what that is, doctor? The muffler bracket for a 79 Pinto?" Like, I love witty banter.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, that's the XR-2200. The XR-2300 is a lunar shuttle." And, like, I love just fucking stupid.
It's like
Back and forth
in
witty
Airplane,
banter
like
like
the
that.
3 pilots.
Yeah.
We have Clarence,
Roger,
Roger. What's your vector, Victor?
Yeah, like that's fucking funny.
Like-
that's great shit. And
One of the funniest things, and I mean, it's not a comedy movie, but the beginning of it to me is comedy gold. Is Full Metal Jacket. Arlen Lee Emery, the drill sergeant, just going
Greatest
at the troop.
5 minutes of a
Not even the greatest 5 minutes of like the greatest, like 10 or 11 of the greatest insults
okay. So
come out of that opening scene.
So that's another thing. Like, I would take a look at that, like other things which, like what we've been talking about through this in certain aspects of things that you shouldn't laugh at, but I can't help but laugh at this. I like to look at that as a black comedy kind of concept. It's dark, and you know you shouldn't be laughing at it, but I can't fucking help that. And as you said, we are just cutting these people down, like they've been beaten down to the middle end of the ground. But I'm sorry, it's fucking funny. And I always think to myself, if I was in that lineup, I'd have had my ass kicked ASAP.
You'd have been Private Joker.
Yeah, I'd have been so fucked.
What do we have here? A comedian? Private Joker.
Hell, I like you,
I
son.
admire your honesty. I like you, son. I admire your honesty.
You can
Why don't you
to
come
my-
over to my house tonight and fuck my sister?
Yeah,
Poof, and just
hits
clocks him. Like, you look like a modern art masterpiece.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's just, although it's a great, I'm sorry, man, like, that's
It was
witty.
funny.
That's witty. Like, so, okay, so on that note, like, that's very interesting because that's another thing that, like, any of you people who choose to listen to us, I wouldn't listen to us, but, that's a good question to ask yourself sometimes is just like, where do you draw the line to what is funny? Ask yourself what you laugh at, and when you watch a film, and where do I draw that line? Like, is that really actually funny? Like, should I laugh at that or should I not? Like,
Well, and you know, and that's the thing with comedy. There's always a line. There's always a line where you'll find it funny and other people won't. And there's a comedian that actually does a bit on that. I forget his name, but he's a British comedian. He laughs really weird. He's like, ha ha ha. Like, it's just the weirdest thing.
that's
but-
the first fucking laugh I've ever heard.
Well, but it's accurate. It's how he laughs. But he does this thing where he tests the audience, and he starts out with like a low level joke, and then they get progressively
Worse
worse.
as time
And he
progresses.
says his goal is to tell the most offensive joke in the world, where not one person in the audience laughs, but everyone goes oh, and that's what he wants to get to. And he's never gotten to that point yet because he says there's always some people that laugh. But you can hear it when you're watching the comedy. Each joke that he tells, it goes up a level in its inappropriateness. Less and less people are laughing, and more people are groaning.
But there's still
even
that
when you
odd
get,
jack
but
off
even
out there
when you
that
get to the
laughs.
very end, you know, there's still a good portion of the audience that's laughing at it. And I mean, I'm sitting at home laughing at it.
Yeah,
But I'm not just laughing at the joke. I'm laughing at the audience reaction to it as well, right? But like,
right.
there is always a line to what some people find funny and what you don't. And some
Like,
people
there's
find inappropriate stuff hilarious, and other
There's
people
certain
don't.
things that like I find that I'm going to go back and I say that I find funny in saying like some action movies that these are obviously purposely done ridiculously over the top action movies. And one of my favorite scenes that I laugh at all the time is from Machete with Danny Trejo. And there's a scene where he cuts this guy's stomach open, grabs his intestine, and then starts running with it because he learns that the intestine is the longest organ in the body, and he starts running with it, pulling it out of this guy's body, and then starts dragging this guy across the floor, jumps out the window holding onto this guy's intestine, swings down the side of a building and into another window down below, and, oh, thank you, and then just walks away.
Sounds hilarious.
And I'm sorry, it's the concept of it is so over the friggin' top ridiculous. I don't know whether to be disgusted or that's fucking hilarious. I guess it's a graded concept of both.
I was going to say it could be a combination of both.
Don't get me wrong, disgusted.
And that's the thing. Like you could laugh at something that you find kind of funny and still sort of be offended by it at the same time.
Right. Like, I mean, I think the disgusted part comes from the fact that somebody actually had to think of that idea and put it down on paper. The fact that somebody said, that might be kind of witty, and I think we should put that in, and actually made it happen in the film is even more witty than the concept of somebody
Have you
actually
ever
coming
heard-
up with it.
You ever heard, there was a whole documentary done on it with different comedians, but have you ever heard Bob Saget and Gilbert Gottfried in particular do the aristocrats joke?
Oh my God, yes.
But like, that's one of those jokes where it's not really a joke,
No.
but it kind of is, but it's kind of not, and the whole point of it is to offend everyone.
To absolutely to offend everybody. But again, as I said, like what you said with this British guy, there's always going to be some jack off out in the audience who's going to laugh at it.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't sit there and say, well, have we done our job here today? No, because this guy's on the ground peeing his pants laughing. You know, I'm sorry, sir, it's not really funny,
Yeah.
but you seem to find it fucking hilarious.
Anything you want to add before we wrap this puppy up?
I'm just going to sit there and say that if I had to pick a top 5
Yeah,
list of,
what's your top 5?
Of absolutely funny things to watch,
Mean Girls. I'm kidding.
Liar Liar is going to be on there.
Good movie.
American Pie definitely is going to be on there, which I always find hilarious. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation I always find hilarious. I'm going to go a little bit of a different weird level here. I'm going to say True Lies is actually another one of my. It's action comedy, but the comedy in it actually works quite well. I'm going to take that as a funny, and I'm sorry, I'm going to throw Mean Girls in there as number 5. I find Mean Girls absolutely hilarious.
Well, I mean, if the listeners don't take anything else away from this podcast,
you can take away my dignity.
The funniest part of this to me was
Mean Girls.
Sean's obsession with the movie Mean Girls. I had no idea that I was friends with a 16-year-old girl, but
you know what? They were actually like 20-something in that fucking movie, okay?
they're always 20-something when they're playing teenagers in movies.
So, I don't see the problem.
Anyway, yeah, so next podcast will be in about a month from now-ish, sometime in April. We're going to do what we can to get a guest again. I mean, we don't, there's just time.
But you know what?
Time kind of gets away from us on these things when it comes to getting guests, and we're not good at booking people, basically.
We have no friends.
There's that.
We would like to point out though that a lot of great comedy films have been brought up, and of course everybody out there is going to have their own aspects of comedy films, but always keep on laughing and always keep that smile on your face. And you know what? Again, as I said before during this podcast, like, try not to look at a comedy film as stupid. Just, you know what, just sit back, grab that bucket of popcorn, and just watch it and just pee your pants laughing silly.
Absolutely. And feel free to comment on either the YouTube page or on the Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or on our YouTube channel underneath this podcast. Let us know what your top 5
comedy films are. We'd love to know.
If you have anything different, or if you're a huge fan of Mean Girls as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let us know. Let us know who's in the majority here. Me, who's never really seen Mean Girls, or Sean, who thinks it's hilarious. Anyway, on that note, I think we're gonna say good night to everybody, and we're gonna leave you with a little Freddy Got Fingered.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? Daddy, would you like some sausages? Daddy, would you like some sausage? Sausages, sausages. Scotty doesn't know that Fiona and me do it in my van every Sunday. She tells him she's in church, but she doesn't go. Still she's on her knees, and Scotty doesn't know.